In a world that never stops talking, silence is becoming a superpower. Scroll through social media, flip on the news, or sit in a coffee shop for 5 minutes and you'll see it. Everyone has something to say. Everyone is reacting, commenting, arguing, demanding to be heard. The loudest voice often gets the spotlight. But is it the wisest? What if the strongest response is no response at all? There's a powerful quote from Marcus Aurelius that's more relevant now than ever. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. He didn't say to correct the person. He didn't say to argue louder, to clap back, or to set the record straight. He said, be different, be still, be unmoved. This video is about 5 moments, 5 situations that test your self-control. Moments where the ancient Stoics would remind us you don't need to say anything. In fact, silence might just be your greatest act of strength. It's a radical idea, especially today. We live in a world built for noise. Algorithms reward outrage. Platforms reward speed. Everyone is expected to have an instant opinion. But here's the truth. Most of that noise, it's meaningless, it's ego, and it's a trap. This is where Stoicism flips the script. Silence in Stoic philosophy isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the ability to pause before reacting, to observe rather than attack, to reflect rather than explode. It's choosing peace over performance. Let me ask you this. Have you ever said something in anger you later regretted? Have you ever gotten pulled into an argument that left you drained, not enlightened? Have you ever defended yourself so hard that it made things worse? We've all been there, and that's exactly why silence is so powerful. Because it removes you from the cycle. It keeps your power with you instead of handing it over to someone who doesn't deserve it. The Stoics knew that silence is not just about what you don't say, it's about who you choose to be in moments of chaos. When Epictetus said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he wasn't just talking about major life events. He was talking about everyday slights, insults, frustrations, the kind that beg for a reaction. But when you stay silent, you break the loop. You don't feed the fire. You don't invite more chaos. You simply remain calm, grounded, centered. That's real power. Now, this isn't about becoming a mute or avoiding all confrontation. Stoicism isn't about hiding. It's about discernment, knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. And that's what we're exploring here. This video will guide you through 5 very real, very relatable situations where silence isn't just wise, it's transformative. Each one is a test of character. Each one is an opportunity to choose elevation over escalation. Here's what you'll learn. When anger strikes, how silence can save your relationships and your reputation. When someone insults you, how silence can disarm them without lifting a finger. When you're baited online, how silence keeps your dignity intact. When gossip surrounds you, how silence lets the truth rise on its own. And when you're unsure, how silence can show more intelligence than 1,000 forced words. These aren't abstract theories, they're practical tools rooted in ancient wisdom and backed by modern psychology. And by the end of this video, you'll not only understand these situations, you'll know how to navigate them with the poise of a modern-day Stoic. Let's get this straight. Silence isn't about ignoring problems. It's about elevating above them. It's about recognizing that not every fight is worth your energy, that your peace is too valuable to trade for momentary satisfaction. Seneca once said, "It is better to conquer our grief than to deceive it." In the same way, it is better to master your reaction than to let it master you. Every time you stay silent in the face of noise, you're not avoiding chaiti, you're choosing clarity, choosing strength. Imagine this. You're in a heated moment. Someone throws a verbal jab. The old you wants to respond, to win, to hit back harder, but the stoic you, the grounded you take a breath. You say nothing. You walk away. That isn't weakness, that's power. That's transformation. And guess what? That moment changes you. The next time it happens, you're stronger. The world doesn't own your buttons anymore. You do. This video is a toolkit, a mirror, a reminder that you don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to react to every offense. You don't need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You can simply stay silent and let the world handle itself. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed by conflict, exhausted by constant reaction, and craving something deeper, this is your moment. You're about to discover the 5 times when saying nothing at all says everything. Let's begin. Anger is loud. It wants to be heard. It wants to explode. But more often than not, the damage done in anger far outweighs the satisfaction of letting it out. The Stoics warned us anger is a temporary madness. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." That's the problem. When you let anger speak, you hand over your control. Your mood is no longer yours. Your peace is now theirs to play with. Silence in those moments is not just smart, it's essential. Think back to the last time you snapped at someone. Maybe they deserved it, maybe they were wrong. But how did you feel afterward? Did you feel stronger, or did you feel like you lost something? Dignity, control, clarity. That's the trap of anger. It promises power, but delivers regret. When you're angry, silence gives you space. It gives your mind a moment to breathe before your mouth does something your heart has to clean up. And this isn't about bottling it up. It's about filtering, about choosing to act, not just react. Seneca once wrote an entire essay called On Anger, where he explained that no plague has done more damage to humanity. Anger ruins friendships, families, and entire societies. And the reason it spreads so easily is because it's contagious. It feeds off reaction. That's why staying silent when you're angry is an act of rebellion. You're saying, I'm not playing this game. You're refusing to add fuel to a fire that wants to consume both of you. Picture this. You're driving. Someone cuts you off. Your chest tightens. Your first instinct is to shout, to honk, to tailgate. But in that moment, you have a choice. You can react and become part of the chaos, or you can remain silent and remain free. Freedom doesn't always look like a grand act. Sometimes it's as small as choosing not to respond. This is what makes silence so powerful when you're angry. It breaks the chain. Someone lashes out expecting a reaction and gets nothing. That silence, that calm, it's unsettling. It flips the script. It shifts the power dynamic completely because now they're alone in their storm and you're dry, watching from a distance. This doesn't mean you never speak up, but it means you speak when you're ready, not when you're boiling. Silence buys you time. Time to assess, time to reflect, time to choose your words with intention rather than impulse. And sometimes silence is the answer. Not everything deserves your commentary, not every provocation is worth your peace. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, had every reason to lash out. He led armies, faced betrayals, managed political turmoil, but his journals, his meditations, are a masterclass in restraint. In one entry, he reminds himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." When you're angry, the world feels out of control. But silence is your reminder that you're still in charge of yourself. Even modern science backs this up. Neuroscience shows that when we're angry, the amygdala, the emotional brain, hijacks our rational mind. Silence gives the rational brain time to catch up. It helps you shift from reaction to response. That's not weakness. That's leadership. That's emotional intelligence. You don't have to raise your voice to make a point. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause. Let the silence speak for you. People expect retaliation. They expect escalation. What they don't expect is nothing. And that nothing, that's where your power lives. There's a story from Epictetus' life. A man insulted him publicly. Everyone waited to see how the Stoic philosopher would respond, but Epictetus simply smiled and walked away. No defense, no anger, no reaction. Later, he said, "If someone tried to convince you that you have no nose, would you be upset? You'd laugh because you know the truth. That's what silence says. I know the truth. I don't need to argue about it." Imagine applying that to your own life. The next time someone presses your buttons, what if you didn't press back? What if you didn't match their energy? What if your silence was your strength? What if your silence saved you? Not just from the argument, but from the aftershocks, the regret, the damage, the wasted energy. We've been taught to speak up, and in many cases that's right, but when anger takes the wheel, speaking often does more harm than good. In those moments, the highest form of discipline isn't what you say, it's what you don't. Silence lets the storm pass without pulling you into it. And afterward, when the skies are clear, you can speak calmly, clearly, wisely. Or maybe you'll realize there was nothing that needed to be said at all. Because not every battle is yours, not every insult is worth a response, and not every moment needs your voice. Sometimes the strongest version of you is the silent one. There's a special kind of silence that follows an insult, the kind that turns the insult back on the person who delivered it. Insults are invitations. They beg for reaction. They want your anger, your defense, your explanation. But the moment you respond, you accept the terms of the fight. You enter their arena, and the arena, it's built for ego. The Stoics had no interest in ego. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it." Simple, quiet, powerful, no defense, just truth, lived, not shouted. When someone insults you, your silence says more than 1,000 comebacks ever could. Most people insult from a place of insecurity. They're projecting pain, frustration, envy. They want control, and the easiest way to feel powerful is to make someone else feel small. But when you respond with silence, you do something they don't expect. You don't shrink. You don't engage. You simply exist, unshaken. That throws them off. It unsettles them, because they were expecting war, and you offered them peace. Or better yet, nothing at all. Think of silence here as a mirror. The insult bounces back untouched, and the person who hurled it, they're left looking at themselves. Imagine someone says, "You're a failure." If you react, If you shout, cry, argue, you give the statement power. But if you stay silent, what happens? That sentence hangs in the air with no ground to stand on. It dies in the space you refuse to fill. Seneca offered a similar perspective. A wise man is indifferent to praise and blame. Why? Because both are fleeting, both are external, and both ultimately say more about the speaker than the subject. So next time someone tries to tear you down, try this. Listen, breathe, and say nothing. Watch their confusion. Watch them scramble to fill the silence. And feel your own calm deepen, because in that moment, you've proven to yourself that their words don't define you. That's Stoic strength. But what about justice? What about defending your name? It's natural to want to explain yourself, to correct lies, to fight back. But ask yourself, is this about truth or is this about ego? Because real truth doesn't need defenders. It reveals itself over time. And if you live with integrity, the people who matter won't be swayed by cheap shots or rumors. There's a story about Cato the Younger, one of Rome's most respected Stoics. A rival publicly accused him of corruption, a completely false charge. Cato didn't argue. He didn't respond. He continued living as he always had. Over time, his reputation remained untarnished. Why? Because his silence was louder than any defense. You don't need to chase lies, let them run. They'll burn out on their own. But your silence, that remains, that endures. Silence also creates mystery. It makes people wonder. Why didn't they respond? What do they know that we don't? That gap, that space, is power. It shifts the dynamic entirely. It puts you in control. Now, this doesn't mean you let yourself be walked on. Boundaries are important. But boundaries don't require explosions. They require clarity. Silence can be part of that clarity. It can be a line drawn without a word. In the age of the internet, this is more relevant than ever. Online, people hurl insults from behind screens, seeking attention, validation, drama. But here's your Stoic shield. Don't respond. Don't quote tweet. Don't comment back. Don't feed the troll. Let your silence be your stance. Let your peace be your protest. You never win an insult war. You just get dirty trying. And if you're worried that silence makes you look weak, remember this. Lions don't flinch at barking dogs. They walk on because they know who they are. And so should you. Your self-worth isn't up for debate. It doesn't rise or fall with someone else's words. It stands firm like a rock in the surf. The waves crash, but the rock remains. That's what Stoic silence gives you. Immovability. In a world obsessed with clapping back, the one who walks away looks radical, unbothered, unmoved. And that doesn't go unnoticed. People will respect you for it, and more importantly, you'll respect yourself. Because the moment you realize you don't have to respond is the moment you reclaim your peace. So when the insult comes, and it will, remember, you are not what they say. You are not their pain. You are not their projection. You are your actions, your choices, your character. And if all of that is intact, let them talk. Because the most devastating thing you can say is nothing at all. There's a modern battlefield the Stoics never had to face, the internet. It's fast, it's loud, and it rewards outrage. A single tweet can spiral into a digital brawl. A quick comment can become a viral storm. And in public, it's not much different. One raised voice, one sideways glance, and suddenly you're part of a scene. But here's the truth. Not every attack deserves your energy. Not every provocation deserves your voice. Whether it's online or in real life, there's one skill that keeps you in control: silence. Because the more public the stage, the more powerful the silence. Let's start online. You post something thoughtful. Someone replies with sarcasm, twisting your words. You feel the heat rise. Your fingers hover over the keyboard. You're ready to clap back. But wait, what are you really responding to? Are you defending truth, or are you defending ego? This is where the Stoic filter kicks in. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Online insults, trolling, criticism, they're all just events. What you do next defines who you are. And silence? That's a declaration of independence. When you ignore the bait, you remove the power. The provoker expects drama. They want your reaction. But if you don't show up to the fight, there is no fight, and that is devastating for them. In fact, one of the most infuriating things you can do to someone trying to provoke you is nothing. Absolute, grounded, radiant nothing. No reply, no repost, no emotional validation. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you learn to discern between battles worth engaging in and traps designed to pull you down. And in public, the pressure is even more intense. Someone shouts at you in line, someone cuts you off and flips you off. People are watching. Part of you wants to respond, to show you're not weak. But strength isn't proven by volume. It's proven by restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when another blames you or hates you, turn to their soul. Understand what sort of person they are. You'll realize you don't need to strain to impress them. In public moments of provocation, your silence protects your dignity. It protects your energy. And most importantly, it protects your future self from regret. Ask anyone who's been in a public altercation, what's the first thing they say afterward? I shouldn't have said that. I wish I just walked away. Stoicism saves you from those moments. It gives you the space to choose, not to respond, not to escalate, not to match chaos with chaos. And that choice is what separates the grounded from the reactive. In fact, silence in public moments is leadership. It's rare, it's powerful, and it commands more respect than any comeback ever could. Think about it. You're in a store. Someone tries to embarrass you. You stay silent, calm, composed. Who really wins that moment? The person who yelled or the one who stayed unmoved? It's the latter, always. And here's what happens when you master this. You stop being so easily pulled. You start creating an unshakable inner space where insults, shouts, comments, clout-chasing attacks, they bounce off. You don't flinch. You don't take the bait. You just remain. This is what being untouchable really looks like. Stoicism doesn't say to avoid life. It says to meet it with poise, and nowhere is that tested more than in public conflict, real or digital. In those moments, your silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's presence of mind, presence of self. It says, I choose peace. I choose power. I choose not to play your game. And if people around you misunderstand that silence, let them. Their misunderstanding is not your responsibility because your silence is not about them. It's about you, about staying grounded, about not letting one moment hijack your whole mindset. So here's a rule. The louder the crowd, the calmer you should be. The more intense the attack, the deeper your breath. The more public the challenge, the more sacred your silence becomes. This is how Stoicism lives in the modern world, not in a toga, not in an old scroll, but in a crowded subway, on Twitter, in the middle of a heated debate, and it shows up in one simple, radical decision: don't speak. Unless speaking improves the situation, improves your peace, or lifts others, remain silent. Let the noise pass. Let the attention seekers chase shadows. You, stay rooted, stay unshaken, because in a world desperate for reaction, calm is rebellion. Silence is power, and not responding, that's the ultimate flex. Gossip thrives on reaction. Rumors need attention to survive. They live off emotion, off denial, off the endless cycle of he said, she said. But silence? Silence starves them. When you hear your name in someone else's mouth, twisted, exaggerated, misunderstood, the instinct is to jump in, clear things up, set the record straight. But Stoicism teaches something far more radical. Let your actions speak and let the noise pass. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." In the face of gossip, your character is your statement. Your silence is your defense. Because here's the truth: if you live with integrity, you don't need to explain yourself. People who know you will see the lie. People who believe the lie were never really with you anyway. Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't waste time chasing down rumors or defending their names at every corner. They knew that truth, like water, finds its level. It reveals itself in time, quietly, consistently, and without force. Seneca wrote, "Time discovers truth." Not Twitter threads, not frantic clarifications, not shouting into the void, just time and character. So the next time someone spreads gossip about you, remember, your silence doesn't mean you're guilty. It means you're grounded. It means you don't chase smoke, you don't attend the circus. And when others come to you with, "Did you hear what they said?" you don't flinch. You don't get pulled in. You say, "That's not my concern," and you mean it. This isn't about arrogance, it's about elevation, about refusing to be dragged into low-level conversations by people committed to misunderstanding you. Because gossip says more about the speaker than the subject. It reveals insecurity, boredom, and a need for significance. But your response, or lack of one, reveals who you are. And if you can stay silent in that storm, you've already won. Here's a practical Stoic move. Instead of reacting, double down on your discipline. Let your work speak louder. Let your actions remain consistent. Stay calm, stay kind, stay focused. Because the people who matter are watching, not the noise, but how you handle the noise. And that builds reputation far more than any rebuttal ever could. Think of someone like Nelson Mandela. He was falsely accused, attacked, imprisoned, and yet when he walked free, he didn't lash out. He didn't gossip back. He let the world speak, and he listened. Then he acted, not with noise, but with direction. That's strength. In our own lives, we won't face global rumors, but we'll face whispers, office gossip, family drama, online slander, and in each moment, we'll have a choice: fuel it or ignore it, defend yourself or outlast it. And here's the surprising part: when you don't engage, the gossip often dies faster, because it lacks the fuel of your frustration, it lacks the drama of your defense. It fades, quietly, just like it came. But if you chase every rumor, you become a rumor chaser, and over time, that's all people see. So let them talk, let them speculate, let them spin their webs. You, stay silent, stay working, stay grounded, because no one ever lost respect for being the bigger person. No one ever looked weak for refusing to fight fire with fire. And sometimes silence isn't just strength, it's strategy. It's a long game where your name is built not on claps and comebacks, but on consistency. You'll find that people forget what was said, but they never forget how you carried yourself. That's what lasts. That's what echoes. So if gossip finds you, and it will, meet it with poise, with the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are, someone who knows that what's true doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs to be lived. There's a strange pressure in today's world to always have the answer, to speak up, to be sure, to know. But here's a radical Stoic truth. You don't have to know everything. In fact, sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing at all. In a culture where confidence is mistaken for competence, silence becomes a statement of honesty and humility. The Stoics weren't afraid of ignorance, they feared arrogance. They knew that admitting "I don't know" wasn't weakness, it was strength, because from that space of not knowing, you grow. Epictetus, who spent his life teaching wisdom, made this clear. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And when we pretend to know, just to avoid looking weak, we close the door to growth. We shut out curiosity. We trade our peace for pretense. So what do you do when you're unsure? When someone asks a question you can't answer, when you're faced with a challenge you don't yet understand, you pause, you breathe, and you remain silent, not out of fear, but out of respect for the truth, for the moment, for your own learning process. Because in that silence, you're not shrinking, you're observing, listening, processing, and that in itself is a kind of wisdom the loudest voices often lack. In a meeting, silence signals thoughtfulness. It shows that you're not rushing to sound smart. You're not competing, you're considering, and when you do speak, it means something. In conversation, silence before a response builds trust. People sense that you're not just reacting, you're reflecting. You're taking them seriously, and when you truly don't know something, saying nothing can often say everything. Because in that quiet space, you communicate authenticity. You break the illusion that we're supposed to have it all figured out, and that makes you relatable, not weak. Seneca said, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. And often when we feel pressured to know, to answer, to perform, we're not actually present. We're stuck in the fear of how we'll look, rather than the truth of what is. So silence becomes presence. It becomes a space for understanding rather than performance. And ironically, that silence often makes people listen more when you do speak, because now your words come from awareness, not anxiety. There's power in that pause, in letting others fill the air while you center yourself, in resisting the urge to always be the expert. And here's what's really interesting. Truly wise people don't speak to prove what they know. They speak to share and to learn. They're okay with saying, "I'm not sure. Let me get back to you. I need to think about that." Because that kind of silence shows maturity. It shows you're secure enough not to bluff, not to fake it, not to make noise for the sake of it. And that silence, it builds credibility, slowly, strongly, authentically. So the next time you don't have the answer, don't panic, don't perform, just pause, and know that you're not losing anything by staying quiet. In fact, you're gaining the space to come back stronger, smarter, clearer, and when you do speak, it will matter. Silence is more than just quiet. It's a choice that keeps us in control. In times of anger, insults, online conflicts, rumors, or when we don't know the answer, silence protects our peace. It helps us avoid rash actions, prevents regret, and allows the truth to unfold on its own. Next time you face one of these moments, remember, silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Let the world do its thing while you stay calm and focused. As the Stoics say, it's not what happens to us, but how we respond that matters. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, like, subscribe to Stoic Mind, and share. Stay quiet when it's needed, and stay strong in your path toward wisdom.